Okay, I have a couple of examples of layer masking that I'd like to show you in this video. I have a butterfly image here that I took out in my garden, and as you can see, there's a little bit of interference from an out-of-focus leaf in front of this wing of the butterfly. Now there's a number of things I could do. I could clone from over in this area of the wing and try and fill that in. I could take a copy of this side of the wing, very carefully select it. But butterflies are actually very soft-edged creatures. It's a little bit more difficult than you might imagine to select butterflies and do it very well. It's kind of tedious. So I'm going to show you another way that you might attack this problem. I also took a number of other images that day, so I have this image where I have a nice full wing on the butterfly that doesn't have really that interference from above. So I'm going to take this wing, select all, copy, Control A, Control C, or Command A, Command C, go back to my butterfly base and paste it in. Okay, so now I'm going to bring the opacity of that layer down so that I can see through to the other one just for positioning. Now I can come in and position that wing right over like that. I can take my transform tool and kind of come in and scooch that little wing in so it fits pretty well there, and hit my enter key. Now with it still semi-transparent, I'm going to make a new layer mask. I'm going to use the gradient tool. I'm going to use the first gradient tool, black to white, white to black, and where I paint on the layer with layer mask with white, it's going to keep that layer completely opaque. Where I paint with black, it's going to make that layer completely transparent. Anything in between will give me shades of transparency and opacity. So as you can see, I've already got one here. I'm going to throw that away just so it's not confusing. This one up here is the one I want to work on. It's got to have the double border around it or I'm not working on the layer mask. So I'm going to click on the layer mask. Now I'm working on the layer mask. Use my gradient tool. I want to keep this part of the wing, so I'm going to use a white on my right to left gradient. There we go. Okay, looks pretty decent so far. I am going to now bring the opacity on that layer back, and you can see how I've brought that wing back in. If I want to come in here and keep the bottom part, I can come in and edit that wing by painting with my paintbrush. Oops, sorry, I was in white. Paint on the paintbrush on that layer mask, and that will bring back in, and I can blend those two sections of wing together. Here's about where it hits. There we go. And you can see how easy and efficient that is, how much faster that is than trying to make a selection or using the clone tool or whatever you might do to kind of patch that wing that had the interference. And you've got a butterfly that's whole, looks really nice, really natural, and it's not a copy of that side of the wing. There are differences between the two wings. So that is one way in which I might use a layer mask. Here's another way in which I might use a layer mask. I've got a picture of a house here that has a very dull sky, and I want to rev this up, so what I'm going to do is go find a picture of some sky. I take pictures of skies all the time, nice fluffy clouds, because we do have so many white sky days when the sky is just dull, awful looking, or gray and nasty, and we want to put in a sky that makes your picture look a lot better. So I'm going to do, again, select all, copy, Control or Command A, Control or Command C, come over to my picture of the house here and just paste it over top. It's going to take a second, and it's going to cover up my entire picture. I'm going to take the blend mode of this top layer, the layer of the sky, and darken it. That's going to let the darker of the two pixels, the one on this layer, the one on this layer, wherever they are, show through. So if this pixel here happens to be darker in the house layer, that's the one I will see. if this pixel here, for instance, happens to be darker in the sky layer, that's the one I'll see. So that makes it very easy also to see where my house is, because it tends to be darker than most of the sky. Now I'm just going to take this layer and I'm going to move it up, just drag it up until I get those nice fluffy clouds where I want them. I still have some interference in here probably from the sky, so this is where our layer mask comes in. So I'm going to add a layer mask, use my black brush, because I don't particularly see too much down here. I can use it very, very large here and just make sure that I don't have any clouds showing through down in the bottom. Oh, I did see a little change there. So there were some clouds that were showing through darker than some of these white trim pieces of the house. Now I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, zoom in a little bit, and come in here and paint some of the trim. And you can see there, that brightened up that trim, so that was showing through. Just move over here, holding down the space bar to move around in my image, and you can see that brightens up that white trim. And you notice I don't have to be all that careful because I'm in the darken blend mode for the sky. It's only going to show through the sky, show me sky where it's darker than the house is. So it's only going to be in a few little spots here. It may be down in the base. No, not even there. Again, right over here. Any of the white trim on the house is where I'm looking. And it doesn't look like, yeah, a little bit there, possibly in here. Okay. And you would kind of be careful in looking at that. If I wanted to double check that, just kind of take that layer off and see if you see anything getting darker in the house. Okay? And it wasn't, so it looks pretty good. Again, much, much, much faster than trying to select these trees with all the leaves, trying to select the roof line, the chimney, and all that, and getting that perfectly selected. Just use the layer masking and the blend mode together, and you've got a really fast, slick way of combining something like this. It works for a whole number of different applications in putting one image together with another image. Okay, here's another point where I might use a layer mask. I've got this nice image, it's already been retouched, of this very pretty girl. I'm going to copy and paste this layer over itself. So it's an exact copy of the background layer, only I'm going to go in and I'm going to use a filter on it. I'm going to use the oil paint filter. I'm going to leave the shine off, because if I put the shine on, it's going to give me a whole bunch of strokes that are not very flattering. So I'm going to bring that back down to 0. The angular direction, you can kind of play with that. That's not as dramatic, but it might kind of start messing things up. It might not. I'm going to leave that probably down a little bit lower than that, but leave just a little bit of that on. And I'm going to click OK. So our filter has run, and you'll see that it gives us a really nice effect on the hair. However, it gives us pretty strange things happening with the eyes. So we don't want that really. Let's come in here and add a layer mask, use our black brush, and just paint so that we see through to that bottom layer where the eyes are. I'm going to leave those eyebrows because I like what it's done with the eyebrows. I'm going to come down here and maybe just drop the opacity a little bit for the mouth, but also bring back those teeth a little bit, but still leave it, I just undid that, still leave it painted so that it looks very soft and very pretty. Okay, and that's all we want to bring back of that layer. Everything else, I think, is a benefit, having gone through that oil paint filter. Look how pretty that hair looks. I'm beginning to really like this filter, especially without the shine on it. That's really kind of pretty. Does nice things to the skin too. Okay, now what I want to do is there's a little bit too much contrast between the eyes and the painted part. So I'm going to make another copy of that background layer. Note it's underneath the one where we have the layer mask, so we're just peeking through that layer mask. You'll see where we peek through it. If you look at here, we're peeking through where the eyes are, a little bit where the mouth is, just a tiny bit where the nostrils are. I could come in here, come in here and paint even in the middle of those eyes. I'm not sure I even want to. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run the same filter. So Command F will repeat the same filter I just did. It's going to do exactly what it did before, but this time I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to Edit and Fade Oil Paint Filter. And I'm going to come down and bring it down until I like what it's doing with the eyes, but it's not distorting them so much that it's disturbing. But it'll blend it in. So maybe about 35% there. See how pretty that is? Again, I can come back here and make another layer mask and brush and bring my mouth back if I want any more detail in there, because I didn't do quite as much to that. And you have the eyes that look more painted but not so much. And I could come in here again and touch things up if I wanted, do a little more painting in Corel Painter if I want, and I often do when I'm doing this for clients. But it gives you a very fast, very quick way to get a very soft, beautiful painted look to your image without destroying all the details in it too. That's just a very quick layer mask and painting out to see our original layer below in just a few little areas. Once you're done, you can flatten it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll come up to the top layer, hold down my 3 modifier keys, my Command Option Shift on the Macintosh, my Control Alt Shift on the PC, plus the letter E. That gives me a layer on top of everything else that's combined together, everything combined that I see. Now I can come in here and say, I want to come in and give this a little bit of a burn to kind of heighten the contrast in there, like you might see. You may or may not see that in a painting. So just come in and add just a little more shadow in certain areas. Whatever you do to one eye, do to the other, so always keep your eyes so that you can see both of them at the same time. Maybe actually dodge. I'm going to bring the dodge tool way up high and add a little more sparkle to those eyes, because in a painting a lot of times things are exaggerated. Okay. And you can see down here I might even want to come in with a little lower opacity dodge tool and heighten the shine on the lips. Too much, just go up to your fade again, fade dodge tool, bring it back down to where you like it, maybe 50% there. Okay, so there's just a few little retouches. There's our before, there's our after. You can see it's a little more dramatic. Totally up to you where you want to go with those kind of things, but this is another very cool way to be using layer masks.